I left the corporate world and I started networking and like meeting people. And I just thought that there was so many cool people around me. And I was like, wow, people are doing cool things. And like, I wanted to basically have a podcast that was for somebody like me who was stuck in either corporate America or a job they hated, or maybe a life they didn't like, and hear from people who were like doing things that they believed in. Cause me, I felt like when I was in corporate, I didn't have any authority over my life. I felt like there were so many things that I like wanted to do or I was excited about, but I just didn't do any of them. Welcome to episode 100 of Working Towards Our Purpose. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the lessons I've learned in the last 3.5 years of working towards our purpose. But before we get into that, as always, we're going to take a moment to slow down, just check in with ourselves, see how we're feeling today. All right. Hopefully you got a second there to give yourself some time and space. For me, feeling a little bittersweet, I think, because it's episode 100 and that's quite the milestone. Trying to like let that sink in. And also that means that I'm going to go on a hiatus. And, just as I was like pressing record and kind of waiting for the music to start, I was thinking like, man, I don't know when the next time I'm going to be doing this. Who knows? Who knows when we'll come back? But I'm what's the word? Hopeful that it won't be too long, but you never know. So anyways, we're here at episode 100 and I wanted to do something a little bit different. And really all I kind of want to do is like talk about what I've learned in the last 3.5 years of running this podcast. And like where it started and like where it ended and all the like lessons in between. So yeah, just super casual. Like I tried to plan things out and like I wanted to make it like, I don't know, overly planned. And then like I kept thinking to myself, like every time I overly plan stuff, I can't read my notes, I get lost, and then I end up feeling like I'm not doing a good job. So keeping this one super loose and just kind of like reminiscing a bit and like really trying to just think about like the biggest takeaways from the last 3.5 years. And even more than that, like 5 years, 5.5 years since I've left corporate, and kind of just trying to boil it down and, and just kind of talk about it. And I guess I'll start off with like, why did I start the podcast and where was my intentions when I started it and that sort of thing. And, I was working on podcasts for a long time and like I left corporate and I was trying to like be a podcast production company, if you will. I started editing podcasts. I had a podcast studio in Naugatuck for a little bit. I was doing a lot of like back end production stuff and just trying to like make it as an entrepreneur. And when I left corporate, because again, if this is the first episode you're listening to, I was in corporate America for 6 years. I was a mechanical engineer for the military defense contracting complex, and I hated it, and I was miserable, and I was making great money, doing all the things I should be doing, quote unquote. But I was really unhappy, and that was sort of my escape out. And if you're interested in like listening to that whole story, episode 1, kind of, I go in depth about that. But yeah, so like I left the corporate world and I started networking and like meeting people, and I just thought that there was so many cool people around me, and I was like, wow, people are doing cool things, and like I want to like learn about them more. I want to talk to them, and B, I wanted to basically have a podcast that was for somebody like me who was stuck in either corporate America or a job they hated, or maybe a life they didn't like, and sort of was able to hear from people who were like doing things that they believed in. Cause me, I felt like when I was in corporate, I didn't have any authority over my life. I felt like there were so many things that I like wanted to do or I was excited about, but I just didn't do any of them. And so, yeah, when I left and I saw like all these cool people, like sort of on the fringes of maybe that's not a good term to put it. But basically just choosing to not do like, your standard American lifestyle, American dream, get a corporate job, health insurance, all that. They were choosing something different. So I wanted to like show examples of people doing that. So for the first 37 episodes of this podcast, it was me interviewing people who I thought were cool and had interesting, neat things that they did, or cool perspectives and that sort of thing. And as I was kind of like looking back, there were a couple favorites that stood out, and like I loved all of the interviews. Like I didn't have a bad one, but there was a couple that stood out. And the first one, episode 4, from Ramona. She was someone I met at like a networking event type thing, and she just had like I did like 3 interviews of this podcast, and I was getting like, I don't know, I was feeling like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. This is hard. Like it doesn't, I don't know. I was like kind of thinking too much about it and being like, I just don't think I can keep doing this. It's too hard. And then I interviewed Ramona on episode 4, and she just had like the perfect story of like who I was trying to speak to. And she was so nice and kind, and like I hardly knew her. And yeah, hearing her story just like really filled me up, and I was like, wow, this is like, I finished the interview and I was just like so full of energy, and I was like, okay, I can keep doing this. These are the people I'm trying to find, and trying to share their stories. So that was a really good one. For me personally, I loved interviewing her. Another one that came to mind is episode 17, Caroline, who was a client that I had, and I worked on her podcast, but I also got to interview her on the show. And she, I don't know, I really connect with the work that she's doing. And she talks a lot about like being seen and heard. And that was something that I really resonate with. Just, my story of always trying to like make my voice smaller and hide and blend in. And here she is talking about like being seen and heard and connecting with humans and people and how beautiful that is. So I really enjoyed that conversation a lot. Another one, episode 18 with Dan from Jitterbus, the coffee shop in New Haven, mobile cafe. I really liked his story about just doing it, just trying stuff and like super DIY. And here Jitterbus is like, I think 10 plus years into the business, and like they're doing great. They have a physical location in my neighborhood now that's always packed. And like, I love that they did it their way and it worked out, and people are supportive. And like, that's something that I really love too. And then episode 37 with Adam from Musical Intervention, just the work that he's doing with music and helping underprivileged people who are on the normally cast out by society, having music bring everyone together, and his work with mental health and music. There's just, yeah, he does so much cool stuff. And I actually listened back to that episode, and I was like, wow, that was a really cool conversation. And I really felt like lucky to be able to like get his time and have that conversation with him, as I did with all the interviews. Honestly, like every interview, I like walked away from it and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Like, I'm glad that I was able to have that conversation for like an hour, because a lot of those episodes were like around an hour long. So, okay, I'm rambling here a bit, I feel. But yeah, so if you haven't checked out any of those interview episodes, go listen to them, because they were really fun for me. And I feel like I learned a lot in all of them. And so, yeah, so that's where I started the podcast. And I was like, kind of like trying to talk to cool people, but also like entrepreneurs. And I was trying to like learn from entrepreneurs and at some point along the line between the last 3.5 years, I sort of got more and more detached from the identity of entrepreneurship, and was just starting to think like, I don't know if this is really how I want to like identify myself or like put full focus into. And, the podcast kind of started out as being super around work and me leaving an industry that I, again, didn't feel connected to, or I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And I wanted to use my energy to do that and to help people, or to help, make something that was beneficial to society, or I don't know, just like be a positive impact in the world instead of like a negative one by contributing to the military industrial complex. But so it started there. It started with like work. And when entrepreneurship didn't really work out for me, and like I never really made enough money to support myself, and I just started becoming more detached from that personality or that identity. And the more like I got along, the more into it I got, the more I started like thinking about purpose and like why are we here, and like reading these cool books and interacting with people and connecting with people, the more like internal I went. And it shifted from like trying to find work that was important. There was a time where I was like really sort of frantic about like finding the right work. I'm like, I need to find what my purpose is so I can start doing it, and like and really just go down that path and like get there. And then I started like realizing that like it's not the specific job that you're doing for me, and I'm not trying to tell anybody, how to believe or whatever, but my path, my story is like I realized that the specific job or the work wasn't really as important as how you're existing or how you're presenting yourself or how you treat people or how you take any job that you do. And I started working all these side jobs, and like I found things that I liked about them, and I found aspects of community that like really made me feel good about my work. And I did a lot of farmers market work, and I loved interacting with community. And that kind of went sour for reasons that didn't really have to do with the job, but more so the bosses and the way the nonprofits were being run that I didn't agree with. And whatever. Long story. Don't have to get into it. But what I realized, what I'm trying to say is that it shifted from like trying to find the job that was my calling, and more so shifting inward and internally and figuring out like who I am as a person. So it started off as like trying to find the right job, and then it was like, well, wait a minute, who am I? Like I realized that I don't really know myself that well, and the timeline of things is a bit washy, but in this process, I like got the privilege of having time to be quiet and to be alone and to like to reflect and to look inward, and that's a lot of what this last year of this podcast has been thinking about things like mental health and like things that I struggle with. ADHD and depression, and like the idea of you have to like achieve to have worth and value, and like struggling with all these things and trying to work through those things. And what I found, and of course still on my journey, and I always will be, but what I found is that like when I started tending to those things, that all the other noise just sort of wasn't as loud anymore. And like I wasn't so focused on figuring out what my purpose was or why I'm here. And I started just existing, and I started just making decisions based on how I felt and what the intuition I had in the moment. And I started living, it felt like, and maybe that sounds dramatic, but like, I do feel like that. Like, I do feel like if I'm comparing myself to corporate engineering me versus now, like I'm not as worried about like where I'm going. I'm more concerned with just trying to make sure that my day-to-day choices are good choices, and the rest of it kind of works itself out. And I don't know. I'm thinking right now of how I'm being perceived and how that's coming off. And I know, at some point you need to like think about practical things and like money and all that stuff. But, and it's a balance, everything's a balance. But when I found that like I put more energy into following my own self and doing it my own way and thinking about what I wanted, then I've been more happy. It's led me to more opportunities that were good fits. It's led me to where I am right now. And where I am right now is someone who doesn't have it all figured out, but somebody who is doing things that they've wanted to do their whole life. Like right now I'm working on 2 really great music projects and engineering and producing and mixing and recording. And that was something I always wanted to do since before going to college. And now I'm doing it. And that feels so good. And, it's a start. It's like me and my friend's first projects, but like first real projects. But we're working with really cool artists that I love. And like that is the coolest thing. And making a positive impact on their life and their music career. And that feels really good. And that, although pays very little at the moment, is very important to me. And like, I don't mind like working a whole day and then going, after work to go work on that. Like that fills me up and that makes me feel like I'm working with purpose, and it's not necessarily like the title of the job, but more so me acting in a way that I think is true to me and authentic to me and who I think I am. And that feels really good. I'm going to open mic nights and I'm playing my music. I'm taking up space. I'm being heard, which is something that's super difficult for me and was really difficult for me for a really long time and still is. But I've had some great friends that have encouraged me and yeah, just being a little bit less afraid of like taking up space and like being heard. And that's like super, super deep for me. Super, yeah, I don't know. I won't get into that, but like overcoming those things, and becoming who I want to be, even though it's like scary and I'm afraid and I think I'm not good enough, like pushing past all that noise and doing it anyways and doing what I want. And I found it becomes easier and then you get to do more cool things. And then it's like, wow, now I'm like doing stuff that I never even thought of. And yeah, it's really cool. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm articulating myself very well or if this makes any sense whatsoever, kind of just going off the cuff. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm much happier now than I ever was with a corporate cushy job that had benefits, and just having the time to think about who I am, like giving myself the space and being okay with like not having it figured out have been some of the most helpful things for me to be able to make decisions that actually do make me happy and that actually do fit for me. So yeah, I don't know. And I've learned so much along the way and found so many different things that I never knew that I would enjoy. But now I've found things that I know I really care about. And again, although that I don't have it all figured out, I still have things that I know I like and I know how I want to exist in the world, and I could work towards those things. And it doesn't have to be, like I was saying, it doesn't have to be a specific job or a business or being an entrepreneur or a musician or whatever. It can just be me existing day to day in the way that feels true and authentic to me. And yeah, that's like something I didn't know going into this podcast. I thought it was just like, oh, I should be an entrepreneur. Like I thought I should be that thing. And I found out like I don't really care too much about that anymore. Like I care more about how, like I keep saying, existing day to day, blah, 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 rambling. But yeah, so, I'm not sure how I want to end this. I don't know if that was helpful at all. It kind of feels rambly, but I always do this to myself. So, just lost my train of thought. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I did want to mention this. Okay. So another thing that like I've learned too, the last iteration of this podcast, I started it back up last year in beginning of July, and I went weekly, and then I started doing like 2 a week, and then I backed it down to 1 again. And I've basically been recording and releasing an episode at least weekly for almost a full year, like a couple weeks shy of a full year. And I learned a lot about myself in that process too. And, at first I wanted this podcast to be big and to like have it be a source of income and like get monetized on YouTube. And I tried hard for a while to like do that. And And I found I was just losing myself. And I found like I was trying to make episodes that I thought people wanted to hear instead of like what it is that I felt I needed to say. And that was a really big learning process. Um, and again, what I learned in that is like, I don't know, sometimes we focus, and I say me, I focus so much on like the numbers of things. And I'm like, oh, this podcast only has this many downloads. Like that's nothing compared to like podcasts that are, you know, mid-range or whatever, podcasts that are like making money and all that stuff. And eventually, after like beating my head against the wall so many times, I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore. Like I'm just making this for me because it's beneficial for me to think about these concepts and these topics. And hopefully it's beneficial to somebody who's listening. You know, there's a handful of people that are listening each week. And I really tried to think about it as like, not just this numbers game. Cause when you think about stuff on the internet, like, I don't know, you post a reel and you get like 600 views and you're like, oh man, that sucked. Like, I wish I had 500,000, but like 500,000 people is so many people. Like 600 people is so many people. And to really try to just like think small again and think like locally and be like, okay, there's 15 to 20 people listening to this podcast a week. That's awesome. That's so many people. Like that's a lot of people. That's a room full of people. And like, if it's helpful for them, then that's great. I've done my job. Like, that's all that I need from this. And when I started thinking about it like that again, I sort of just left all the like stuff you're supposed to do aside, and I just did the things that felt good. I just, you know, tried to simplify and to just do the things that felt good, put episodes out and not think about them too much. And that was like a really big process of letting go. And you know, I hear about this a lot in Rick Rubin's book. He talks about like, you know, making the art that you want and detaching from the outcome. And not just Rick Rubin, but a lot of people say that, the artist way, just detaching from the outcome, like making something that you believe in and you really like and you think is good and just putting it out there and detaching from the outcome. And, you know, with social media, it's really hard to do that because there's so many metrics that are right at the tip of your fingers. But I've found that when I can just detach from the outcome and not think, I don't even really look at the analytics anymore, and just make stuff that I think is good and cool, then I feel better about it. And every now and then I'll get somebody to be like, hey, I listened to your podcast and that like really helped me out. And like, that's the biggest feeling for me of like, okay, that's great. That's awesome. Like, that's why I do this. And yeah, just detaching from the outcome, like stop looking at the numbers, like stop thinking about being viral or successful in terms of numbers. And that's been really helpful for me. And in this last year of me recording this podcast, that's what I've learned. And it gets me to just think about like being a smaller community and impacting that small community in a positive way. And I think that's something that I really care about. And I think that I can do this with this podcast. And, you know, music, certainly another way to do that. Recording people's music is another way to do that. And like, that's what I found that I care about. And I'll end on this little story, I think. I'll end on the story in a second. I do want to say something about the listeners. Because for all of you that have listened, I do really appreciate, you know, any time that you spent listening, even if it was just 2 minutes of an episode or 1 minute or one episode. If it's the first episode you listen, I really do appreciate you giving me the time, because I know how it's so, you know, everything's just scrolled to the next thing. So yeah, thank you for listening. I do feel grateful that people do listen. And I did want to, I don't know why, but I felt like I should say the stats mostly to myself so I can listen to them. We have over 3,200 downloads total, which in podcast terms, not great for 100 episodes, but for me, that's like a lot. And that is a lot of people. That's a lot of numbers. There's been people in 45 states that have listened. And this one is the craziest to me, 82 different countries. And yeah, it's crazy to think that like your voice can reach that far. And yeah, I don't know. I'm saying it so that I can let it sink in, because sometimes I look at it and I don't think too much of it. And I'd like to appreciate it. So I'm saying it so that I can appreciate it, not as like a bragging thing, because it's, you know, in comparison to other podcasts, not really even bragging at all. But yeah, I'm saying it so that I can feel that. So I am grateful for that, and I am appreciative of that. And when I started this 3.5 years ago, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that I would even get to 100. So I'm very grateful for all that have listened and hopefully been impacted in a positive way. So did want to just touch on that real quick. And then I'll end with this last story. I was just talking about community and local community, and like, the world is a crazy place. Maybe it's always been a crazy place. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of negative stuff going on, but each of us have the power to impact the people around us. And like, I think the most frustrating thing for me when I was in corporate America was that, like, I just felt like I was shutting myself off for 40 hours a week. And then I'd get home, and once I recovered from like that, how that negatively affected me, then I could turn myself on and like maybe impact positively the people around me. And that's why I hated it so much. And I couldn't quite articulate that back then, but now I can. And now I realize that, like, I don't have to shut myself off anymore. I don't have to numb myself and put myself through this experience that I don't want to be a part of just to get a paycheck. And now I can be on at all times. And, generally speaking, most times, I can, say a nice thing, or like go to an open mic night and compliment somebody who was like super nervous, but like I thought they were cool. And like, people have done that for me. And yeah, like you can positively impact the people that are around you. And though there's so many things we don't have control over, we do have control over how we act as ourselves, and allowing ourselves to be ourselves, and finding out who we even are, and making ourselves happy internally, so then we can positively impact the people around us. And I've certainly seen that within myself. Like, I was not the best person to be around when I was in corporate. And I don't say that in like a self-pity way, but in a self-awareness way of like, yeah, I was angry a lot. Like, I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of just negative feelings, and that was okay because it pushed me out of there, and that's what I needed. But yeah, we have the power to like impact the community around us, and it doesn't have to be worldwide. It could be just, the 2 or 3 people that you see every day, or walk past, or say good morning to. Like, it could be just this little thing that you could positively impact somebody's life, and like, those little things add up to the big things. And so last night I went to this open mic in Torrington at this really cool place called Howard's Bookstore. And I followed them online, and like, and I've seen them before, been aware of them. But I went to an open mic night last night, and there wasn't that many people there. There was a handful of people there, but we had like the greatest conversation, and like we played our songs, and it was just cool to be in a place where somebody is creating community. And I think like those things are so important to me, because like, the open mic that I go to regularly at Spruce Coffee in New Haven, that's another place like where somebody's intentionally trying to make a place where people can come and have a good time, and like share ideas and exchange, and motivate each other and impact each other in a positive way. And although there's all this negative noise going around, like, there's people out there that are trying to do positive things and trying to create places for community. And like, I don't know, that to me is the coolest thing. Like this bookstore in Torrington, like it's not a big city. There's not that many people there. Like, it's this old industrial kind of rundown city, but there's pockets of these cool things going on. And like, it's people that like choose to do those sorts of things that are positively impacting the community around them. And somebody went up there who played guitar for 1 week, and they performed, and they were like, wow, this feels really cool. Like, I want to keep doing this. And like, how does that impact that one person's life? Even if only 4 people show up every week, it's like, that's really cool to have that much of a positive impact on somebody's life. And yeah, so I say that to say, like, that's how I want to choose to exist. I want to like be able to do what I want to do, and do things that are cool and impact people's lives in a positive way. And yeah, I just think that it's cool that other people are doing that. I still think it's cool. It's how I started this podcast. But I still just like, I think it's important to identify that there are people out there doing that. And although it's hard, and it's, not easy as just going to a corporate job and sitting on your ass all day and doing nothing, getting a paycheck. For me, it's like, it seems like more work to not follow the straight and narrow path. But in the end, for me, I found that it's actually more work to sit on your ass and do nothing all day long, and to just be pissed off at the world, and to just be a commentator. And you could be a participant in your life. Like, you could choose to not do that. And although it seems harder, and although everybody tells you it's harder, it's not. Like, and what makes it like it is hard work, but you're doing work that you care about, and that's fun to you, and that feels like you're alive. And that's not work. Like, the other day I worked a 12-hour day. I worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. in 2 different jobs. And I thought it was going to be hard, and I was like, oh geez, I'm going to be so like tired and stuff. The day flew by, and I loved doing, like, I did my bookmobile job, which I don't know if I've talked about on here, which is awesome. I get to interact with the community. And then I went and did my first live sound gig, and it was awesome. And I had a lot of fun, and like, I met people and got to give compliments to musicians, and like, it was so much fun. And like, I was like, that's not hard. Like, that's fun. Like, maybe it seems hard up front, but doing it, I was like, that's awesome. Like, do I want to work a 12-hour day every day? No. But what I'm trying to say is, like, doing those sorts of cool things is way worth, for me, in my opinion, way worth the trying to figure all the other stuff out, and, you know, going against the grain and going against what society tells you. Because for me, that feels more like living, and I feel more like I'm positively impacting the people around me. And that was kind of my goal, I guess, like, with leaving corporate. And it took a while, and I was like frustrated for a while, and like, you know, frustrated about not making it as an entrepreneur and stuff like that. But right now I feel nothing but like gratitude, and I feel really fortunate to be able to participate in these things. And I don't know what's next. I don't know, you know, what will or won't work out, and that's okay. And like, you know, I'm okay with how things are going to work out. And yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but again, that's what I have to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you everybody for listening to this show. And the best way to support me, I think, is to just share an episode with a friend. You know, if you listen to an episode and you liked it and it helped you, just share it with somebody who you think it might help. Because that's my goal with this show, is to just try to help people who feel that they're stuck, especially in their work, and especially in the corporate grind. And yeah, just share an episode, and that's the best way to help me. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for forever listening. Yeah, can't thank you enough. And I don't know when I'll be back, but you know, it might be sooner rather than later, and it might not. But either way, thank you again for listening, and I will see you maybe soon. Not sure.